Hello friends, this video is a very interesting video in which you are going to study a very important chapter of your medical subject. Friends, today we are going to see about the respiratory system and its diseases. See friends, in the respiratory system there are many respiratory organs and when they are together they perform a specific function. You can see in this picture you will get all the respiratory organs. So friends, here we see the different organs which are nose and nasal cavity, nasopharynx, epiglottis, larynx, trachea, two bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli, two lungs and their covering. The covering is the pleural membrane. Between these upper and lower pleural membrane, there is a fluid called pleura. Friends, all the above organs when come together they do a specific function called respiration and thus they form a system called respiratory system. All the organs of respiratory system also form a tract called respiratory tract. This tract is divided into two parts, the upper respiratory tract and lower respiratory tract. The upper respiratory tract involves nose, nasal cavity and pharynx. And the second is lower respiratory tract which consists of larynx, trachea, bronchi and lungs. In upper and lower respiratory tract, the process of respiration takes place. Friends, now we will see what is respiration. See friends, the respiration is the biochemical process in which the cells of an organism obtained energy by combining oxygen and glucose, resulting in release of carbon dioxide, water and energy. This energy is in the form of ATP. Now friends, we will see one by one the organs which are involved in the process of respiration. The first organ is the nose. Friends, the nose is an external organ through which atmospheric air we take inside the body. This organ is made up of cartilage and bone. This cartilage is called hyaline cartilage and has a septum which bisects the nose. The nose also contains vestibule having nasal hair on it, whereas the bones is called nasal bone. This nasal bone has a cavity called sinus cavity. The posterior part of the nose is attached with nasal cavity. This nasal cavity is divided into two segments. The upper segment is olfactory. The olfactory segment has nerve receptors which are attached with olfactory nerve to brain, and these cells helps in giving sense of a smell. The lower segment of nasal cavity is respiratory segment. The inner lining of respiratory segment is made up of respiratory epithelial cells, and these respiratory epithelial cells secretes mucus which keep the respiratory tract moist. This segment acts as a passageway from nose to pharynx. Friends, behind the nasal cavity and the mouth it has pharynx. The pharynx is made up of muscular tissues and connective tissue, and its inner lining is also made up of epithelial cell which secretes mucus. This pharynx has three main parts. The upper part is nasopharynx which is connected with nasal cavity. The middle portion is oropharynx which is connected with the oral cavity, and the lower one is hypopharynx which is connected with the larynx. Friends, in between oropharynx and hypopharynx there is a muscular cap like structure called epiglottis which allows air to come inside larynx and food to go inside esophagus. So friends, we have seen the important role of epiglottis here in the below the nasal nasopharynx. Now friends, we will see the larynx. As you can see in this picture, it is a complex structure present in between hypopharynx and trachea. And this larynx is made up of cartilage. 6 type of cartilage is there which is present in larynx. And this larynx has a dual function. It works as an air passage from pharynx to trachea, and it works as an organ of phonation also, where sound is produced. So we have seen the dual function of larynx. Since the larynx is attached with trachea, now we will see the trachea. Trachea is a tube-like structure, is a muscular tube-like structure, and is commonly known as windpipe. This tube is about 4 inch long and the diameter is less than 1 inch. The trachea begins just under the larynx. This trachea in the lower end is divided into 2 smaller tubes called bronchi. One bronchus in each lungs. This trachea is the passage of air to lungs. Friends, now we will see about the lungs. See, lungs is a pink color spongy organ parted into 2, left lungs and right lungs. This lungs is present in our thoracic cavity. The lungs, that is right lungs, is slightly bigger than left lung due to the space occupied by the heart in the left. And friends, the weight of each lungs is about 1.3 kilogram. The right lungs, as you can see here, has 3 lobes: superior lobe, middle lobe and inferior lobes. Whereas the left lungs has only 2 lobes, superior as well as inferior lobes. And each lungs is attached with bronchus, which is further divided into many branches called bronchioles. And this lungs is covered by a double layer membrane called pleural membrane. Between outer and inner pleural membrane, there is a fluid called pleura. Friends, here we have seen that in the lungs, bronchus is divided into many bronchioles, and in each bronchioles there is a structure. This structure is called alveoli. Friends, alveoli on each and every bronchus, this sac-like structure, alveoli is present, and almost 300 to 500 alveoli are present in each lungs. Here in alveoli only, it is surrounded by blood capillaries where exchange of gases takes place. You see in the picture, oxygen is coming in and carbon dioxide is going outside the blood. So this exchange of gases takes place in alveoli. Now question which comes here is how this exchange of gases takes place. Friends, now we will see the mechanism through which this exchange of gases takes place in the alveoli. Friends, you already know that atmospheric air contains 78% of nitrogen, 21% of oxygen and 0.4% of carbon dioxide, with other gases which are very less in amount, that is aeron and all. Aeron is 0.9%. So this is the composition of atmospheric air which we take inside, and in this 21% oxygen and 4% carbon dioxide, when it goes inside the lungs, in this lungs we already have oxygen and carbon dioxide, and the concentration of oxygen and carbon dioxide is 13% as well as 5%, 5.3% respectively. So therefore friends, when this oxygen comes inside the lungs, the concentration of oxygen is higher in the lungs compared to the blood. So the oxygen from higher concentration in alveoli of lungs move into the lower concentration in the blood of blood vessels. Similarly, the concentration of the carbon dioxide is more in the blood compared to the alveoli. Thus, the carbon dioxide from higher concentration in the blood vessels move into lower concentration in the alveoli of lungs. So this is how the movement of, or you can say exchange of gases, takes place from higher concentration to the lower concentration in the lungs. Friends, this process is completed only after breathing. See friends, breathing, in breathing we see is a process in which body takes atmospheric air inside and expels the byproduct air outside. The process of breathing involves inspiration, and after inspiration we have pause and then expiration, in which in the inspiration atmospheric air comes in, whereas in expiration the byproduct air goes out of the body. The rate of breathing is 15 times per minute. Friends, this inspiration is an active process and expiration is a passive process in which bones and muscles are involved. The important muscles which are involved are intercostal muscles and diaphragm, where the bones which are involved are ribs and sternum. See friends, the contraction of diaphragm and expansion of intercostal muscles cause a pressure variation, and thus air from outside come inside. At the same time, when there is an expansion of diaphragm and contraction of intercostal muscle, due to pressure variation, air from inside goes outside. So friends, we have seen the entire process of breathing. Now friends, we have to understand what is the difference between the breathing and respiration. Friends, we have already seen that breathing is a biological process of inhaling and exhaling of gases between the cell and the environment. The mechanism of breathing involves various respiratory organs such as nose, nasal cavity, nasopharynx, trachea, bronchus and lungs. Whereas in respiration, it is the chemical process that takes place in cell. The process of respiration involves, friends, the external respiration, internal respiration and cellular respiration. The external respiration is the movement of air in and out of lungs, and the gaseous exchange takes place between lungs and the blood in internal respiration. Whereas in internal respiration, the gaseous exchange between the blood and the cells takes place, and in cellular respiration the gaseous exchange within the cells takes place. So friends, we have seen the different process of respiration, that is external respiration, where the movement of air, that is exchange of gases between lungs and blood takes place. In internal respiration, gaseous exchange takes place between the blood and the cell, whereas in cellular respiration the gaseous exchange is within the cell. Now friends, we will see the disorder of respiratory system. The most common disorder is the asthma. Friends, this asthma is a condition which is characterized by bronchospasm causing difficulty in breathing. This bronchial asthma may be precipitated by exposure to large range of stimuli including allergens. We have different respiratory infections. Friends, when any microorganisms comes in respiratory tract, it leads to infections. The common infections are common cold. This common cold is also known as rhinitis, and it is associated with running nose, nasal congestion, sneezing and all. It is the inflammation of nasal mucous membrane. Friend, the common respiratory infection is cough also. This cough is a protective and physiological reflex which is responsible for expelling any foreign matter which enter into the respiratory tract. There are other respiratory infections also, like pharyngitis, which is the inflammation of pharynx, laryngitis, which is the inflammation of larynx, tracheitis, which is the inflammation of trachea, bronchitis, inflammation of bronchi, bronchiolitis, which is the inflammation of bronchioles, otitis media, inflammation of middle ear. So friends, we have seen the respiratory infection. Here we end the chapter of respiratory system and respiratory tract infection. Now friends, very shortly we will see the questions which are important for the interview. The questions which can be asked are: what is respiration? Describe the different type of respiration. Describe anatomy and physiology of lungs. Name the respiratory organs. Name the 5 respiratory tract infections. Define immunity. What is hypoxia? Name the muscles which help in breathing. Differentiate between breathing and respiration, and so on. So friends, here we end this video. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you friends.